In this video, I'll be talking about natal Gemini Sun in the 8th house and what this placement means for you if you have it in your chart or if you're watching for somebody else. And with that being said, what the Sun represents in astrology is it represents our way of acting and what motivates our actions. It's also how we want to be seen or perceived by others, because it's about our ego, and it's also about how we shine in the world and how we come across to others. With that being said, when the Sun is in the 8th house, this shows somebody that is more secretive and could be more internally private or reserved than how they come across on the surface, because the 8th house is about secrets, and it's also about deep or dark topics. It's about psychology. It's about desires and motivation. So first of all, these people have a strong desire nature. They have a strong sexuality. They are also strategic about their approach in life, and like I was saying, they have a more secretive side to themselves. And in terms of how they come across on the surface, there actually could be more depth to them than how they portray themselves. So that is the first thing about this placement. But also, the Sun shows things that we're passionate about because it rules the 5th house, and it's things that give us energy, because the Sun is all about our energy levels. So wherever the Sun is showing a topic that you always have energy for, or that you're passionate or motivated by. So in the 8th house, these are people that are motivated by dark topics, by secrets and conspiracy and investigative topics. They like mystery. And since the Sun is in Gemini, this is all about thinking. This is all about the mind. This is all about being clever and being opportunistic. So these people love to solve puzzles, or they just love to think of loopholes and things. They like to think of ways to circumvent the system, or to hack things, or to essentially outsmart things in a very clever or psychological or deep way. And they also just like mystery as well. They just like to think about secret topics or taboo topics or things of that nature as well. They have a very psychologically calculated mind as well. So anyway, with that being said, the Sun in Gemini in general shows somebody whose actions are motivated by circumstance and by opportunities, or by a certain train of thought, so by their ideas as well. And when it's in the 8th house, this to me shows somebody that thinks about superficial or circumstantial ways to achieve their desires, because the 8th house is about the things that we desire. And people with the Sun in the 8th house, they're very motivated by what it is that they want. That is one of the motivations of their actions, or the way that they express themselves. And when it's combined with Gemini, this is about somebody that is very opportunistic about those things. And they could have a more superficial approach to acquiring them, because Gemini Sun is the most superficial sun sign. It's not a negative thing. It's just the way that it is, because it shows somebody whose actions is motivated mostly by intellect or by their mind, or by opportunities or circumstances. And the positive of that is that they are quite adaptable, and they like situations where they can use their wit or their intelligence to get ahead, or to accomplish a desired outcome. So with that being said, since the 8th house is about secrets as well, and it's about complex situations, and the Sun in Gemini is about communication, and it's also about adapting to circumstance, this can indicate a tendency to communicate superficially when there is actually more depth involved to the situation that you're talking about. So, in summary, what does this show? This shows somebody that is a good liar. And, these people as children, they may have had a tendency to lie a lot. And even as adults, they might have a tendency to sugarcoat things. Because again, the eighth house shows a more secretive tendency, or somebody that expresses themselves in a way where there's actually more depth involved to them or to what they're talking about, especially because in this case we're talking about communication, because Gemini is about communication. Also these people will tend to have a really good sense of humor, that have the sun in Gemini in the 8th house, and it could be an unintentional thing that they have, like an unintentional gift for humor, but also their humor could be more dark or psychological in nature or taboo. They can make a lot of sex jokes or jokes about death, jokes about taboo topics, but they bring humor to the dark side of life. That's what I feel like they'll turn a serious situation into a joke, or like they will make something that seems serious or makes something that seems so daunting or real into something that's fake or funny. So anyway, another thing about these people, they could be pranksters as well. Like they like to do something where there's like a secret factor that the other person is not aware of. So that can often manifest as jokes or pranks. And anyway, that's just because also Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the trickster god in Roman mythology, and it's also the god of communication, the god of trade and commerce, and messages. So anyway, as I was saying earlier too, the 8th house is about sexuality, and Gemini is about communication or curiosity. So these people are sexually curious, adaptable, or opportunistic. They are also good flirts, or they have like a seductive communication. Not only is this in an attraction sense, but also this is having to do with being good at selling things too, because the 8th house with a combination of Gemini can show advertising talents, or like talents of selling things to people, or like making them want something through communication. But of course too, this manifests in a interpersonal way, in a sexual or seductive manner as well. When you have the sun in Gemini in the 8th house, you're just good at communicating and making people want what you have to offer, if you know what I mean. So there could also be, the next thing about this placement is there could also be a tendency to gossip, because the 8th house is about drama, and it is a water sign, and it's about being mixed up or merged to others. And Gemini is about communication. So a lot of times your communication gets you mixed up in other people's drama unintentionally, or it could be intentionally. But the 8th house is about people's secrets, and it's about other people's BS. So since you have the sun here in the sign of communication or thought, a lot of times you may think about other people's BS, or you might be thinking and like investigating, or like internally gossiping in your mind about other people's psychology or other people's secrets. But also on a more extroverted sense, you may find it natural to talk about other people's BS or other people's secrets, because your sun is in the 8th house and it's in Gemini, which is about communication. And a lot of times this gets a lot of people mixed up in drama with you, or like sometimes it can create enemies, or it can make people angry at you. But anyway, the next point is that, as I was saying earlier too, Sun in Gemini in the 8th house shows somebody whose actions are motivated by thoughts, especially thought that revolves the psychology of other people. So again, this can make somebody that's more opportunistic about the way that they want to achieve their desires. Gemini is about communicating superficially. And with the combination of the 8th house, it shows somebody who communicates superficially or circumstantially in situations where there is actually more depth involved. So again, this is the point about there could be a tendency to lie, or you can come across as a liar at times. And anyway, when there's a planet in the 8th house, this shows a theme of life that brings more complexity to your life, or more drama. And for you, it's revolving the theme of superficiality, because that's what Gemini is all about. It's all about the mind, and it's all about opportunities, it's all about circumstances. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's about superficiality, but it is the most superficial sign. And when I see a planet here in the 8th house, it shows that the tendency of being superficial, or the tendency revolving superficial circumstances, creates a lot of drama. So this could be about gossip, like I was saying, or like from you being perceived as more superficial, and from other people feeling that you are deceptive or something like that. But it could just not be something that's intentional on your part. Sometimes people mistake your actions as having more depth than they really did have. But I feel like since the sun is also in the 8th house, your actions could have more depth to them. And the real problem could be the way that you present themselves, or like the more superficial approach to things that you have. Anyway, the reason I said all that is because normally Sun in Gemini will manifest situations where other people misinterpret your actions as having more depth, or coming from like a deeper place, when it really just came from thought, ideas, or circumstances. So anyway, that could be something that you relate to. But I feel like, though, it's the other way around. When Gemini sun is in the 8th house, usually people might mistake your actions for being superficial when there's actually more depth to what it is. So it's like kind of a reverse effect. So anyway, Gemini, or the ruler of Gemini, which is Mercury, is also a god of thievery. So there, in terms of this placement, what it's showing is there could also be a tendency to steal things, because again, they show somebody who acts circumstantially or opportunistically about their desires. So like, you could, especially as a child, you will have a tendency to steal things, like when you have this placement. And this can continue into young adulthood, but eventually you become a little bit more refined about how you go about stealing things, or about how you go about opportunities, or the opportunities that you allow yourself to pursue. But these people always notice opportunities to steal or to circumvent rules. Like, they're just clever in that way. So even if they don't pursue that, they just have a talent for theft. But I wouldn't recommend pursuing that, just for obvious reasons too, and just because of the fact that when you take things, you're also indebting yourself to somebody else. So you're in the spiritual realm. When you're stealing things, you're racking up spiritual debt. It's almost like a credit card. So eventually you're gonna have to pay all that back, and the 8th house is the house of debt. So a lot of times it will be paid back in the form of retaliation or retribution from other people, or just building like a lot of enemies, or building a lot of subconscious guilt, or like you'll build up like subconscious stigma in your mind, or like a negative self-image. But anyway, ultimately, if I had to summarize this placement, this shows somebody who is opportunistic or circumstantially motivated in their actions, especially in terms of their desires, in terms of power dynamics, and also what other people have to offer. They're also psychologically calculated and thoughtful. They have something seductive about their communication style, or some talent revolving, making people desire things or desire them. And they also are very curious. That's the final thing about this placement, because the 8th house is about depth and Gemini is about curiosity or opportunities or thinking. So this shows somebody that is deeply thoughtful or deeply curious, or is curious about deep things or topics, or things revolving people's secrets or people's psychology or people's personal lives. So anyway, with that being said, that summarizes what I wanted to talk about for this placement. So I hope that this was insightful, that you guys enjoyed. If you did, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I also do personalized natal chart readings, where I cover each of your placements as well as your personality, your talents, and your destiny based on your North Node. So if you'd like a personalized video, go ahead and check the link in the description to my Patreon, where I do a free natal chart reading for each of my Jupiter tier patrons. Also, I have an email if you'd like to contact me that way and book a natal chart reading, if that interests you. So definitely check those out. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys watching and supporting in any way that you do. And I'll talk to you guys sometime soon in another video. Peace.